Hey, welcome into the FFU today, baby. We got a week till the season starts, 7 whole days. And what we wanted to do these next few days, we wanted to highlight each position and our rankings as a consensus group. So myself, Aaron, Jeremy, and Essie, all what our consensus rankings are at each position. And today we're gonna talk about everyone's favorite position. If you've heard us talk about these guys, the tight ends, you've heard what is to reach a certain point. We're not super excited to talk about them, but there's a lot of fun nuggets to parse through this week. So stay with us as we talk about the tight end position and our rankings in general. Hey, welcome in. This is myself and Jeremy Schulman. How you doing today, Jeremy?
Yeah, man. Chilling, ready to talk tight ends because I guess we have to at some point. I mean, if they're not the top 6 guys, I don't give a crap. I was just going through my rankings and like, do I have to rank Daniel Bellinger anymore? Just to pour one out for my man Belly over there, who lost an eye last year and still came back to play, reality football. Tough guy, but tough scenes in these tight end streets this year.
He should just be playing with the eye patch. That would be hilarious. But yeah, if we've reached the Daniel Bellinger portion and you need a tight end, you have gone too far. I'm just gonna say that right now. Might want to talk about a little bit earlier. Like I get it. There's some guys outside the top 6 though that I like, but yeah, it gets thin at tight end. I think this is the position where it's like the most obvious from what you go from the elite guys to the not. It's like the cutoff is massive and you feel it. So that's kind of what we're here talking about today. Talk about these tight ends and break them down. So yeah, so I'm excited to do it. What do you think? Should we jump into these fun, lovely, big body tight ends?
Let's do it. Let's see if I can do this seamlessly. Here we go.
All right, that flawless, baby. Let's go.
Redraft consensus rankings, as you can see, all available on our website, fantasyfootballuniverse.com. Here we are with our top 12 consensus guys. So like Jesse said, we're just going to go through it, our consensus, and we'll give you at least our rankings and tiers and how we decide to break it down.
Yeah, like we all have individual tiers. They're not all displayed on here, so we can kind of hit on that. But I mean, you could, as you see how our group really top 6, you can maybe make the case for top 8, top 9, top 10 if you really want to go that far with it. I think once you get, for me specifically, once we get to 10 and Ferguson, like it really takes a hit. But I do like Bowers. But overall, that's kind of like where my second tier cutoff is. But let's talk about the top guy. Let's talk about everyone's new favorite tight end. And you might be saying, where's Sam Laporta? It should be Sam Laporta. Not so fast, my friends. As the Lizzie Corso would say, no. It's Trey McBride. I just think Trey McBride is personally set up to be in a better situation where he's not doing all of the blocking. If everybody remembers, tight ends in Arizona, they drafted Tip Raymond to be that massive blocking tight end, similar to kind of Darnell Washington in Pittsburgh. He's going to play that role, which is a massive blocking tight end. And we saw this with Laporta. He did a lot of blocking last year. Obviously, he was incredible. He was tight end 1, but I think the upside shot is a little bit higher for McBride in year 2 with Kyler, like fully recovered from the injury. So that's why he's my 1. Aaron's a little lowest on McBride. He's got him at 4. You have him at 2. And what's kind of the differentiation where he's a little bit lower for you?
Yeah, it's Sam Laporta. I mean, stop.
Yes.
Let's stop. Look, guys don't finish back-to-back, as the number 1 overall in their position. But we've seen this happen time and again at the tight end position because Travis Kelce has been going bonkers for a decade, where he finished like 7 times as like the number 1 in the last 10 years. So I see no issue or no barrier to Sam Laporta finishing again as the tight end 1. Jameson Williams has been hyped up, so maybe he steals a little bit from Laporta and Amon-Ra slightly, but I just think those guys are so good. And you talk about where Jared Goff likes to throw the football. He's learned since his LA days, get the ball out quick, even though he's got a great offensive line in front of him. He's learned to get the ball out quick. And that's why you see those short area guys, Amon-Ra, Laporta, and Gibbs all feasting in the passing game. JMO, I think, will be more situational, more, boom bust deep threat. And that still leaves the targets wide open for Laporta. And JMO is going to take coverage away from those guys, really stretch the field. And so, they haven't had that deep threat there. on a consistent basis in Detroit yet. So Laporta going into his second year, I just think, look, we're splitting hairs here. Yeah, McBride's my 2. He's our consensus 1, but yeah, give me Laporta at 1 to do it again.
Yeah, it's interesting because I went back and forth between like our second guy is Kelsey, our third guy is Laporta, and that was the one I struggled with the most. And it really just comes down to like what we saw from Kelsey at the end of the year. And you might want to say like they added multiple pieces to that offensive situation. I get it. So if you want to go for the young guy in Laporta, absolutely go for it. It's just Kelsey feels like he's eternal, and at some point he is going to fall off. But I'm not going to build that into his projection this year. So I went back and forth with him and Laporta as 2 and 3, but like it's really the way I look at these guys is I just want the guy who's cheaper of this group, specifically these top 3 guys, right? And then we get into like Andrews and those guys in that group. But I think whoever falls the cheapest, I would be happy to grab. So like we've seen Laporta was tight end 1 for the longest time, and then Kelsey's actually, if you look at redraft rankings, like he's considerably above him now. So I don't know if this is redraft ranking again. So you can kind of use this to your advantage and maybe just wait and have Laporta or McBride, one of those guys, fall a little bit. It's probably the best way to go about doing it, but you can't go wrong. Like Kelsey's still doing it. His receiving grade was above. Like he had one of the best. It was like him and Kittle, the top 2 receiving grades in the NFL for PFF. Like these old guys still doing their thing, so it's really interesting. It's just for me, I went back and forth on this. Like we were updating the rankings this morning. I was like, I'm not sure how I'll do this still. So it's a coin flip between the 2 of them. Maybe it's a little biased with Kelsey. I think is what it is.
I was a little distracted because Aaron has been arrested, so that's why he didn't make the pod. No, he just said he had a police situation at work. He's good, but he's lost his lunch break. But did you say you have McBride, Kelsey, Laporta? That's your top tier there?
Yeah, well, it extends further. Like it's basically pick 5 is my cutoff with Andrews.
Okay.
And then it's Pitts, and Pitts is kind of the tweener where I want to put Pitts in that tier, but man, like the whole issues with freaking Cousins coming off the ACL, like still not seeing it with him. So yeah, it's more of a top 6 for me. Realistically, top 5. I'm fine with any of those guys because we can talk about Laporta, we can talk about Kincaid. Like I think Kincaid has a really, really good shot to be like the tight end 1 this year. So and he was awesome last year. Like he was he had a ton of receptions. Like he's top 4 all time in receiving like touchdowns or receptions from a rookie tight end. Like that kind of goes just under the radar with him. And I get it. There's the Dawson Knox situation, but like I'm not worried about Dawson Knox. So yeah, for you, is it those top 3 or does it go down a little bit further?
It's the top 6. I agree with you. I want one of those 2 guys, but I've split them into 2 tiers. So it's Laporta and McBride, tier of their own. I think those guys have, like we just talked about, very little barrier to the overall tight end 1. They're most likely to hit it. And then for me, it's as you can see in my rankings there, it's Andrews 3, Kelsey at 4. And I'll talk about that in a second. And then Pitts, Kincaid. But like you said, any of those 6, I believe, can be the tight end 1. I have Pitts slightly over Kincaid just because those 2 guys haven't technically officially proven it. They've proven their skill, but they haven't proven that elite production. You could say Pitts in his first season, but I think he only had 3 touchdowns, maybe even less in that first year. So, he technically hasn't put up that elite fantasy season yet, even though we know he's got the skill. So, but let's go back to Travis Kelsey. He's our consensus 2. I'm the lowest on him at 4. I'm just get increasingly concerned, not about Kelsey's skill level declining. Really, for me, it's the fact that we saw this play out last year. Kelsey had a little injury and they kind of freaked out and they started keeping him off the field during the second half of the season. And they were like, let's just, let's use him a little bit more sparingly. That Noah Gray was way more involved when just from a snap percentage when Kelsey was in the game. I mean, it started during the injury. I forget how many games he missed. Maybe it was 1 or 2. It wasn't many, but he was kind of playing with that injury as well. And they started to utilize Gray a bit more. The thing is, I'm just really, we know this team is in search of a back-to-back-to-back championship. And to do that, they're going to need Travis Kelce healthy in the playoffs. And to do that, Travis Kelce is going to have his work limited. So we saw, for example, Samaje Perine join this team, right? They do not want to rely just on Isaiah Pacheco, out of the backfield. They've had Jerick McKinnon for the past couple of years. They still want that Jerick McKinnon role. Clearly, that's what Samaje Perine signing indicates to me, that he'll probably fill that role. Who knows? Maybe McKinnon will even come back. But what that does is that allows you to replace Kelce in his area of the field, and utilize him a bit less, maybe utilize him a bit more as a blocker. And if that actually happens and comes to fruition, is he still going to be great for fantasy? Yeah. Is he still going to score double-digit touchdowns? Most likely. But it's very possible that some of these guys who are utilized a ton eclipse him. So he's at 4, but yeah, he could be the tight end 1 again.
Yeah, like his route percentage hasn't really changed the last couple of years. It was like, I think in 2020 it was 90. The last 4 years it's been like 86, 84%. He's been there. They took him off the field a little bit more in non-passing situations. So if you look at snap share percentage, it came down. Obviously, I think this did have to do with injury and stuff like that, because like his routes run per game were basically dead on 32. It's been 32 consistently the last couple of years. So he's been kind of in that similar role. He isn't the peak of the peak Kelce where he's running all the routes. Like, I mean, the dude's pushing 35. Like, it makes sense where they're going to tone him down a little bit. It's just, if they're worried about it, I 100% get it. If you want to go for the youth, like, you could totally go for the youth. I just think if Kelce's healthy, which, the injuries happen when you're older, that's the big issue with him. So if you're worried about it, go for McBride, go for Laporta, go for any one of those guys. I think you'll be happy. Let's talk about, as we get to Andrews, who feels kind of like the forgotten by of this group. Mm-hmm. Andrews is like, he just kind of hovers there. And it's interesting because he did get the injury last year, so he missed some significant time. All reports are he's going to be healthy. So I think, for me, I think Andrews is the guy that what you're going to get. Like, the ceiling might not be there. We'll see if it is there or if it's not there, just based on the offense and how they go in year 2. Because they've talked about Likely a lot, and this is kind of what worries me. If they're going to take a little bit away from Andrews and focus more on Likely to kind of be his, like, Robin to his Batman. So I think, unlike Kelce, like, it's not a 1B situation. Like, it's going to be Kelce if he's playing. I think with Andrews, they're going to find ways to integrate Likely a little bit more. So that's why he's a little bit lower for me. But he's still in that same tier just because we've seen him do it. And, I mean, he had 145 targets a couple of years ago. I think he was incredible. The injury concern is there a little bit. The offense is just a little bit lower. So for me, this is why I'm a little bit worried about Mark Andrews. But overall, I have him still in my tier 1. So I'd be fine waiting a little bit tight end to get him as opposed to going for Laporta or Kelce. I think he just kind of sit there, and you can play it where he just kind of falls to you. So I think he's a really good spot this year in year 2 in the Monken offense. Like, I think the upside scenario is just fairly even for all of these guys, and this is why it's really hard to differentiate for me. So what makes him tier 2 as opposed to tier 1 for you?
Yeah, you mentioned the Monken offense. You mentioned the fact that we're kind of fading him because of the injury, and last year the fact that he didn't do it. Do I think he's going to be the tight end 1? I'd bet against it, but it's still possible, right? When he finishes the tight end 1 in 2021, he had 154 targets. Look, it's wide open there, but that still seems like too much to kind of put on the projection plate of Mark Andrews. What happened in 2022 is he went from 154 targets to 113 targets, still finishes the tight end 4. So I think that's a bit more likely. We'll probably see something in between, but I don't think Isaiah Likely takes away from Mark Andrews. They don't play the same position, right? They're both tight ends, but you're going to see Isaiah Likely split out a lot more. He's not really a great blocker. He has substituted for Mark Andrews in the past, but that was more in the passing game role, right? They like him a bit more as a big slot, especially with the fact that Rashad Bateman is, I don't know what he's doing, but he hasn't been a functional piece of this offense since he's joined the league. So I'm not buying into that Rashad Bateman hype, wherever that was at one point in the offseason. I haven't heard much about it lately. So I do think Isaiah Likely will be utilized, but I don't think that takes away from Mark Andrews. There aren't any other pieces here. It's Andrews, Likely, and Zay Flowers, right? We're throwing away Rashad Bateman, at least I am. Tez Walker was the only piece that was added, and Nelson Aguilar, I think he's kind of a good dart throw and best ball. He's a good, he'll be a guy you probably pick up out of necessity off of the waiver wire mid-season because of injury and everything else that happens. But he's just kind of the stretch the field deep threat guy. So I like Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, but if Andrews is healthy, I think he's top 3 easily.
I think it's the interesting case, like you make for him being top 3, because you could totally make it and people would have a hard time pushing against it just because of how good he is. I think because of like the injury that happened last year where he missed significant time, we thought it was going to be worse than it was initially when he was injured. So we were worried because it happened later in the year. So we were worried about his recovery time and stuff of that nature. Turns out he's fine. But overall, like, I mean, he's still a top 4 tight end for us. So I don't think we're really pushing him down too far. I think I might actually, who's the lowest on him? Is it SE? Has him at 6, it looks like. Yeah. So like we all have him top 6. So I think we all agree he's, if you want to do the tier 1 or tier 2, it's fine. Like, I think he's the top 6, and that kind of makes a lot of sense, I think. Because you know what you're getting, as opposed to if we like the next guy in Kincaid and Pitts, you don't necessarily know what you're getting on those 2 guys. So we have, for those who are not being able to watch this, and those are on the podcast. So we have Dalton Kincaid at tight end 5, Kyle Pitts at tight end 6. I think those 2 guys grouped together make a heck of a lot of sense, just if you're looking at striking, because we're building a little projection in both of those. And I know I said Kincaid had a really good year. He did have a really good year. It was not on the level of like a Samuel Porta type year or season. Where Trey McBride showed it longer throughout the year. He gave us a shorter window, and it wasn't as high peak as McBride. So that's kind of my issue with Kincaid. But the runway is set up for both of these guys in similar situations. Obviously, they got, if Kirk Cousins is healthy in Atlanta, like that sets Kyle Pitts up really well. And this is also Dalton Kincaid. He's connected to Josh Allen. And there is minimal target competition in one of the best passers in the NFL. So, like, this is why it's really easy to talk yourself into Dalton Kincaid tight end 1, because you're like, dude, they got what? Keon Coleman playing X. I don't feel great about that. They have Khalil Shakir. They have Curtis Samuel. They have not a lot else there. It's just like, it's really easy. So I think if you want to do the upside shot, I think Kincaid has a super high upside shot to get there. We need to see a little bit more from him, because his PFF receiving grade was down like 70. It was a lot lower than these guys were. Like Travis Kelce led the league with his PFF grade at 87, is like significantly higher. And I think with Pitts, what worries me at 6 is we saw a regression in his metrics last year, and his usage was not there. Like his target share came down to like 21%. His like targets per route 1 was a little bit lower. And maybe this is the Arthur Smith thing and all it is, but like we did see regression. So this is kind of what worries me a little bit about Kyle Pitts. So I'm not as bullish as I want to be on Kyle Pitts, because I think the talent's there, everything is there. He was obviously dealing with the injury. He wasn't healthy. So if he's fully healthy, do you see the scenario where Kyle Pitts finishes as a tight end 1? And can he hit that for you?
Yeah, 100%. I think he's, between him and Kincaid, those 2 are the least likely to do it. That's why we have them here in the consensus. I have them flipped 5 and 6, but they're both the least likely to do it, but they can still do it, right? Because the idea is, the upside shot for Kyle Pitts is the fact that Bijan absolutely goes nuts. The defense kind of holds up. And then, to an extent where they keep them in games, but the defense isn't great. Raheem Morris is there as well to improve it. But really, you're looking at Zach Robinson as the new offensive coordinator. You're looking at Kirk Cousins and those 2 guys tailoring the offense around their 2 star pass catchers when they're throwing the football. And I don't, and that's Drake London and Kyle Pitts. And I don't think that, there's really nobody else there. Darnell Mooney, sure. He's fine. He's capable. Rondale Moore already injured. So really the pieces of the passing game pie are getting thicker for all of the remaining guys who are left standing there. And we know Bijan's going to get his. We know Drake and Pitts are going to get theirs. So that's all great. But yeah, for me, I love Pitts. And Kincaid, like you mentioned, I mean, he was utilized a ton kind of down the stretch, except for kind of that period of time when Knox came back at first. I think they were trying to feel him out. They also fired Ken Dorsey, right? So it was a weird feeling out period from their bye week in week 13 further on. But then at the end of the season, from week 17, 18, and then in a wild card round, 7, 8, and 6 targets. That's what you love to see, just that consistency of targets. He also had that in the middle of the season when Knox went down. So I'm with you. I'm not worried about Knox. One thing I'd like to say, and then, because this is the top 6 guys, so for me to put a bow on this, is the other thing I'm looking at is not only just within this top 6, the talent that these guys have, but also we talk about kind of where they are in the pecking order. Yes, great. You want them to be first, second, or third in a high-powered offense. They're all there. But the other thing we have to consider is does the team need them, right? And so that's for me why Travis Kelce is a little bit lower. I don't think Patrick Mahomes needs Kelce to win games in the regular season, right? So that's kind of why I'm fading him a little bit. Laporta and McBride are necessary, right? Laporta maybe a little bit less so. Andrews, Kincaid, and Pitch, those guys are all necessary. So for me, Kelce faded a little bit. Laporta might not be necessary if JMO, turns into what everyone's saying he could turn into. So that could be a way that he falls. But, one or two or even three in the pecking order on a great offense and being necessary to the offense in the regular season. So that is my concern with Kelce. But all these guys could finish as a tight end one.
I think that gets into our next tier of guys and kind of the issues we have with those group. Our tight end 7 is George Kittle. There's a Dalton Kincaid mentioned in here. It's Dalton Schultz also. There's 2 Daltons. I always mix them up. Dalton Schultz is another guy that is in a similar situation to Jesus, I can't talk right now. George Kittle, where it's like a massive target competition. So we'll go through these guys. 7, our tight end 7, George Kittle. Our tight end 8, David Njoku. Our tight end 9 is Evan Ingram, and our tight end 10 is Jake Ferguson. And that kind of cuts it off what I consider like the top 10 group of like where you're confident with these guys. With Kittle, it's target competition. It's really the only thing with Kittle. If Kittle was in if Kittle was in freaking Buffalo, like I would have Kittle tight end 1 because I know what he's going to do in that offense. The issue is it's a target squeeze, and I hate to say that, but it is. And this is the issue with Kittle. He's one of the best tight ends. I think he's been the best overall tight end in the NFL the past decade. Like I think Kittle's just incredible. It's just it's really hard, man. When you got McCaffrey, you have all these guys. You have Ayuk, you have Samuel. It's really hard for all these guys. So he's the boom bust, like spike week tight end. You want to roll with it, you're going to get massive spike weeks. You just have to deal with the low place with him. When we get to the next guy, I think it's really interesting because I'm personally a little bit lower on Evan Ingram than actually SC's the lowest guy on Evan Ingram, but like we have him a little bit lower. This is because of the whole Brian Thomas Jr. thing. I think what Brian Thomas Jr. he does is he shifts the offense, changes it. I know. He shifts the offense a little bit where if he hits he's going to take a hit. It's just he's not going to be the featured focal point because the whole thing with Evan Ingram is his splits with and without without Christian Kirk are dramatically different. Like he boomed with him when he was on the field, not so much. So you're bringing Christian Kirk back. You're also bringing a really good round 1 rookie wide receiver who I expect to play deep throw offense. Like I just worry about the stealing for Evan Ingram. I think we saw it last year. I don't see it. I know you're higher of an Evan Ingram, so like I'm gonna let you take the floor with Evan Ingram for a little bit.
Yeah, we got to talk about Evan Ingram because he is in a separate tier, a third tier for me after the top 6, but he's number 7 because he could be a dark horse to finish as tight end 1 simply because he was the tight end 2 last year. Yes, they didn't have Brian Thomas Jr. He looks legit. I might have to take the L on that, but we still need to see it. He still needs to acclimate. He needs to do it against, NFL defenses in real NFL games. Mm-hmm. But it looks like he's going to be able to do that. So if that's really the case and everyone stays healthy, yes, I think Evan Ingram at tight end 7 is between 7 to 10 is realistic. If any of those guys go down for any amount of time, like you said, they're probably going to lean on Ingram. We've seen it before. Kirk and Ingram are the guys that, Lawrence trusts and leans on in this offense. Brian Thomas Jr. could take a while just to gel with Lawrence as well. So there's a lot of those things still going in his favor for this season. So look, but who does, and this is a good point, but who does BTJ, who does he eat into? Are we sure that he eats into Ingram? Maybe this is more of a downfield passing attack in that case. Maybe he's eating into kind of some of Kirk's downfield passing. Maybe he's, taking some away from short yardage ETN a little bit because they said they want to lighten his load a little bit. Maybe they lighten in the passing game. So I don't think it's a locked in that just because Brian Thomas has arrived that Evan Ingram is all of a sudden going to lose those targets. Look, is he going to earn a ridiculous 143 targets like he did last season? No, but I think we can lock him in for 100 at least, which is what we want to see at a tight end. And then 120, 125, I think is still very realistic for him. And if he's getting that, he's going to need to find the end zone more than just 4 times. But I think that's possible for him. And so I'm just, I have a really difficult time pushing him beyond 7. And like you said, there's the target squeeze in San Francisco with Kittle. Sometimes he scores 3, goes off and scores 3 touchdowns. Sometimes he, gets 3 targets in a game. So I much prefer Evan
We're
Ingram
losing
and
you a little
what I
bit, so you might
view
want to
as the
check
consistency
your connection because
over that.
it's really sketchy right now.
Oh,
But
sorry.
I'll continue with you for a second while you fix that.
Yep.
With comparing him to Njoku, I think is really interesting because Njoku, if we look from tight end 7 on last year, he was the tight end 1. Like Njoku was awesome in his usage in that offense. Like it really comes down to Deshaun Watson. I think that's the biggest question mark with Njoku. He's going to be a feature part of this offense. I think him and Cooper are by far the safest. I know people like Jerry Jeudy. Like folks, Jerry Judy's fine. Like he's an NFL wide receiver. He got paid with it. But I just worry, this is why he's a little bit lower and he's not in that tier 1, is because the question marks I have the offense with Deshaun Watson. But I expect the Cleveland offense to be pass heavier, and it just comes down to target competition. Like I don't see much competition what Njoku does. It's very specific to the offense, similar to like BCJ. With BCJ and Gabe Davis, they're going to be on the field like all year. Like those are going to be the 2 main wide receivers, and Christian Kirk mixing in the 3 wide receiver sets. That's kind of more. I just wonder how it's going to shake out in that offense. And if I'm betting on a round 1 wide receiver who I like, I'm going to make that bet. So I'm going to be a little bit lower, but I still have him top 10. Like I'm not completely fading him. I think where it gets really interesting with this grouping of guys, and this brings up to the next guy, and that's Jake Ferguson, who basically the runway is there. It's Dak Prescott. We saw Dak Prescott. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. There is no competition outside of CeeDee Lamb. I know people like Brandon Cooks. Like was borderline awful. Like if he's your wide receiver 2 in a passing attack, Dallas is really shit the bed on that one. So I think I know people are worried about Jake Ferguson, but like I think he's a solid NFL tight end, similar to Dalton Schultz in Houston, who we'll get to in a little bit later. It's just there is no competition there. So I think like it's really easy. Like we talk about 100 targets, that feels like more like the floor line for him to kind of go a little bit higher. So I think if you're betting on a talented situation, I think Ferguson probably has one of the best, if not the best situation of all these tight ends in the NFL to do his thing. It's just I'm a little bit lower on his talent, so that's why he's not going to be a tier 1 guy for me. But I think he's the last guy I'm personally confident where if I have him as my tight end 1, like I know what I'm getting. I know the production. I know it's going to be fine. So it's kind of like you have to parse through the situation and talent. I think he really gets a big situation boost. The talent's fine. I think he's a complimentary NFL tight end. It's just I'm not going to put him at tight end 1 because like that's what worries me. But overall, I think you'd be happy with these guys as your tight ends, like for me. And yeah, it's Njoku is just you're just betting on the talent. If Deshaun Watson works out, like you have a really good guy. Where are you kind of at with Ferguson? Where do you stand on him?
Yeah, Ferguson's a really interesting case. I had to move him up a little bit. I really struggled to do that. But if you look at from week 13 on last season, he had 8 targets for a month straight in every single game, then 6 targets twice to round out the season, and then 12 targets against Green Bay, 10 receptions, 93 yards, 3 touchdowns. So he absolutely went off in the playoffs because they were just blanketing CeeDee Lamb, right? Like they were doing everything they could. Of course they were. And you know what? It worked. So because they won the game. But of course they were doing everything they could do to contain CeeDee Lamb. That's going to happen again this year across the board. So I think Ferguson has a chance. That being said, I struggle to put him over George Kittle. And Njoku, this is kind of what Jerry's saying here. I mean, he had the production with Joe Flacco. So that's really the concern there.
Yeah. Like it really, like those 2 guys feel very safe in the Cleveland offense. I know they went out and they paid Jerry Jeudy the bag, but I feel safe about Cooper. I feel safer about Njoku having that role necessarily. Similar to Ferguson, like I kind of know these roles that these guys are going to play. It's really just, I know some people are more worried than others. I'm not as worried about the competition. That's why I have these guys all top 10 for me. Like this is where my tier 2 personally ends. It seems kind of like when you look at the rankings at tight end 10, that's the cutoff. And then I guess we can move on to our tight end 11, which is Brock Bowers. And it's you're just betting on talent. Like he's got the best tight end profile of all time. Like I don't say that lightly. Like his profile as a tight end is the best we've ever seen. From a tight end to be a receiving monster, like he was used short, even intermediate. He was using the slot. This is why a lot of people's favorite receiver in LA, Lam McConkey, did not do what he was doing because that was Brock Bowers' role. Brock Bowers was getting a lot of that. So like Brock Bowers was better than Lam McConkey in that offense. It just really comes to it just comes down to betting on talent situation. I think once we get outside the top 10, for me personally, Brock Bowers, I'm fine making that bet. You just kind of have to live with that offense. This is also the similar situation to Devontae Adams. Like it's like the talent is there. It's just who their quarterback is, man. It's really hard to see Brock Bowers jumping into like the top 5 because of that. He can get there. It's just like you have to weave that path a little narrowly. So like I'm okay making that bet on Brock Bowers. And like we all kind of have him similar length. We have him 10 through 12. So no one's significantly higher or significantly lower on him. Well, no, actually Aaron has him 13. So like Aaron has him at 13. So Aaron's the lowest of our group. But like would you be comfortable as Brock Bowers as your starting tight end in just a redraft league?
No. No, I need one of those top 6 guys. Like that's the issue that I'm having. As you can see, Pat Fryermuth, I have above him. I just think that that's another guy. We talk about the runway being there. There's nobody else. George Pickens should not be earning 170 targets, but there's room for somebody to earn 170 targets in that offense because there's nobody else there. But he's going to have about 140, 150 pretty easily. And then Pat Fryermuth is going to soak up the rest outside the back. So I think Pat Fryermuth is in a better situation than Brock Bowers, even though the talent's there. So Brock Bowers for Dynasty in the future, yes. Brock Bowers year 1 with who is it? Is it Minshew? With Minshew and whatever they're doing in that offense. No, I'm out this year.
Yeah, I get it. But I'm not like when we talk about betting on talent situations, like this is exactly the example. This you can kind of tell as a manager if you're confident doing that, if you're drafting Brock Bowers. If you're not, you can go with the other guy. The whole thing with I hate the Pittsburgh offense. I think it's going to be atrocious. If George Pickens gets 150 targets, like people should have him significantly high. I think there's no fucking way in hell he's getting 150 targets in offense. I think he's not like the thing with Pickens. Nobody. That's my whole case. That offense, maybe. He's not a target monster. If he was a target monster, like somebody said, if they combined Deontay Johnson and George Pickens, they'd have the perfect wide receiver, right? Because you get the target monster, and then you get the guys downfield threat. I think Pickens is the fun bet in that offense. I just worry about those receiving options. Like the whole issue is Fryermuth is like in the preseason, his usage sucked. Like he was splitting. This is what they did last year in Atlanta with Kyle Pitts. He was splitting. Like, I just don't think he's going to run enough routes. So, like, I have a hard time. Like, I had to put Fryermuth up here. But, like, I probably want to bring him. It's just, you'll see with these tight end rankings we have, like, why he's there. Because once you get past Fryermuth at, like, 13, it gets really ugly. I think with Dallas Goedert, the guy we kind of skipped over a little bit, it's a similar situation with target competition to Kittle in San Francisco. It's just a worse situation because the talent's there. You also have a rushing quarterback on top of it. So, he's never going to hit the high-end ceiling we like, but I think he's a good talent. So I'm okay with him as my starting tight end. I don't feel great about it, though. I just know he'll give me some spike weeks, too, because he's a good player. That's my whole case with Dallas Goedert. But, like, he's your tight end 12. You can't feel, like, super. You're like, oh, yeah, I got Dallas Goedert. It's like, okay, I got Dallas Goedert. It is what it is, right? So it's kind of – we've reached the point where I don't think any of these guys are super reliable. And there will be somebody that jumps from this group, right? There's going to be somebody that always jumps. Maybe it's later. But there will always be somebody that surprises us. So – if you're punting tight end, you probably want to take a couple guys from this point forward because it's going to be a little rough. Where it gets interesting with Schultz is just a similar situation. I don't know how he gets the volume that we want him to get, being the fourth option in offense, right? yeah, that's the whole. It's the injury upside. Like that's the one way. If Diggs goes down, if Dell goes down, if freaking not boy Nico, but if one of those guys goes down, right, this is how he gets the boost. So. You're betting on the Houston offense, and you're betting on a guy who was really good last year. He'll be good this year. Like, I don't mind doing it. You just got to live with it. Like, these are the best ball tight ends. I feel much better with him as a best ball tight end. I know there's going to be some spike weeks, right? But overall, if he's my starting tight end, I'm like, man, this is going to be rough. It's like he's Dallas Goedert, but he's like a worse version of Dallas Goedert, and that worries me a little bit more. So it's like similar to Ferguson. The talent's like, even though Ferguson has 76 PFF receiving grade, it's just kind of just like I have a little bit of question marks with that. So when we get to these group of guys, though, I think let's talk about Hunter Henry for a second because that New England offense, similar to the Pittsburgh offense, it could be really, really gross. Who's the highest on it? SC has him at 14. So we all kind of have him in the 14 through 18 grouping.
No chance.
Like the whole thing is unlike Evan Ingram, like he's going to get end zone targets. Like this is kind of what Hunter Henry's done for years. He's been he'll give you some spike weeks. I just don't think, unfortunately, he's had significant injuries his entire career. So he's not the athletic freak he was coming out. I think it was Arkansas at college. So he's just kind of like a fine NFL tight end. You'll know you get some weeks out of him. Overall, like his tight end 15 though. He feels more like the high floor with like the low ceiling, the low ceiling play with the high floor. Like you kind of know what you're getting. Give me a top 20 tight end. It's going to be fine. There will be some spike weeks in there, but if you're drafting, like if you've gone this far down, personally, I would just rather take the upside shot as opposed to owner. I would take the Green Bay tight end and my boy Luke Musgrave. I would take the shot, who's our tight end 16. So to kind of recap down here, we have Dallas Goedert at 12, Pat Freiermuth at tight end 13, Dalton Schultz is our tight end 14, Hunter Henry is our tight end 15, and then we get to tight end 16 and Luke Musgrave. What are your kind of thoughts on Musgrave in the Green Bay situation?
No, the Packers have a really nice early season schedule. It sets up really nice for Jordan Love and his pass catchers. The problem is you never know week to week who those pass catchers are going to be.
Yes.
When there's an injury, and there has been in Green Bay, especially last year, it's much easier to parse out. But Musgrave himself has been injured, right? Do I expect that to happen this year? No, I don't expect any injury to happen. But then that's the problem, is there's too many mouths to feed. We saw Tucker Kraft step in admirably and be basically what we expected Luke Musgrave to be last season. I still think Luke Musgrave is the guy, so I have him ranked over Tucker Kraft, but I think those guys could split. We saw that they're basically the same guy in this offense. And then if all those wide receivers are healthy, I mean, Jordan Love just loves to chuck it downfield. So
yeah, 100%.
No,
I think
I don't want to take the bet.
Sorry, I lost you a little bit there. But I think with Musgrave, you're just betting on the situation in Green Bay. It's going to be one of the better passing attacks in the NFL, led by Jordan Love. It's really wide open. I think the one thing that's going to be evidently clear is Romeo Doubs is going to frustrate everybody. Like Romeo Doubs is going to piss everybody off in fantasy. So get ready for Romeo Doubs to be the wide receiver in Green Bay. It's going to be a lot of fun. Be the one guy running all of the routes. I get it. I just don't mind throwing a bet on the upside who have an athletic freak, which Musgrave is, and the passing attack of that offense. So personally, I'm okay doing that. But yeah, like obviously we're getting down in this range. Let's talk about TJ Hawkinson, because if he's healthy, the upside you're getting with TJ Hawkinson. It's just, can Sam Darnold support that? I don't know. But like we saw last year, TJ Hawkinson was the tight end one. He was on pace for a monster season. It comes down a little bit because it's not Kirk Cousins. But overall, like I actually don't mind pairing Hawkinson with another one of these guys if you want to play late round tight end and do that. Get Hawkinson, you put him on your IR slot, and then you have one of these guys like Hunter Henry. In the meantime, roll that, and then when Hawkinson comes back, you get a high-end tight end. Like I think that's a fun scenario to play because it's like the KOC offense. You know what you're getting, and he's going to be featured. And with the Addison's issues and everything, it's really just Justin Jefferson like for the first half of the season. Then when Hawkinson comes back, like there is upside there. So if we're doing this game of punting tight end, which we don't recommend, but if this is what you're doing, like I actually like throwing a dart on Hawkinson personally. I know a few of us are a little bit higher, a little bit lower, because I have Hawkinson at 12. I'm significantly higher than everybody else in our group. So I might be talking for myself on my ass here, but I don't mind throwing the dart because I know of all these tight ends. Like he's the one guy when he plays, he's going to give me production. These other guys, I have no flipping clue when I'm looking at this grouping of guys. And I mean, you can talk about Taysom Hill if you want to talk about Taysom Hill, the New Orleans situation and how we are like, all right, well, I guess it's open for him. But Hawkinson, I'm fine with doing it. How do you like? I know you're probably gonna say no to a lot of these guys, but with the Taysom Hill situation, we know what Taysom Hill's doing, and you just have to dive into the variance with Taysom Hill, right? Like if you have him on your roster, you have to live with those spike weeks, and that's going to come because there's going to be like a handful of weeks where he's going to be a freaking top 5 tight end. He does it every year. He's going to be rushing. They've as much as we hate Dennis Allen, and he's been a knucklehead and just done a lot of weird stuff in that situation, he clearly loves Taysom Hill, so they're going to feature him. And it like we just kind of have to accept it, which sucks because I like Juwan Johnson, but Juwan's dealt with an injury, so let's set in for Hill. So who knows? Maybe it's Taysom Hill season again this year. So for those 3 spike weeks, it'll be yay. I think the next guy who our tight end looks like it's tight end 18 is tight end 19. Tyler Conklin is the Jets tight end connected to Aaron Rodgers. If you like, I went back and forth between him and Hunter Henry. Like, I think there's a better upside shot for him with the role he's playing in that offense connect to Aaron Rodgers. We've seen him like do this exact same thing multiple years where like he gets those receiving touchdowns to those tight ends. So as far as these tight ends go, I don't mind throwing a dart on Tyler Conklin. I don't know necessarily the upside, but he's going to be down in the goal line getting those red zone looks. As long as he gives you like a 15% target share, which is iffy, but if he could do that in that offense, Mike Williams still dealing with injuries. We don't know if he's going to be back fully healthy. It's Garrett Wilson. I do not trust Malachi Corley at all, and the Jets do not either because he is a work in progress. So he's a long-term plan. So I expect Conklin to have a role. So like when you're looking at Conklin, are you okay? I obviously want to compare him to this group as our tight end 19. Like we're talking about Cole Kmet, we're talking about Jawan Johnson, we're talking about Isaiah Likely here. Like personally, I would rather have Conklin than all those guys. Where when you're looking at your rankings, how does that work out for you?
Apparently, my internet sucks as bad as these tight ends at the bottom of this list. So I'm going to keep my responses brief here. And what I will say is I want one of the top 6 guys. I think you can get one of the top 10 guys here by consensus and feel comfortable. If you really punt tight end, you mentioned TJ Hawkinson, you mentioned Taysom Hill, and Tyler Conklin. Those are the 3 guys that I want to take shots on late. Those are guys who could come up with a consistent weekly role and consistent fantasy points for you, but it's scary, right? Tyler Conklin is really at the top of that list for me because we know he's, if healthy, he's going to play the entire season. He's going to play it with an all-world quarterback who we know is accurate as hell, regardless of how well he moves around in the pocket anymore. And that offense is going to move the football with Breece Hall. So I am really confident in Tyler Conklin being a back-end tight end 1 this year. But no, give me one of the top 6. If I really have to and miss out on those guys, I'll take one of the top 10. And then I'll take a shot on one of these guys later.
Yeah, I think the next guy on the list who we have at tight end 20 is Cole Kmet. And I'm just like, why? Like, I don't understand what we're doing. Like, not only is there just massive competition, he has Gerald Everett, who I'm not even sure, like we talked about with Freiermuth, my concerns, they're still the same thing with Chicago. Like, they're going to be splitting work. You have the rookie quarterback, and then you have 3 like really good receiving tight end, like receiving options above him. So I am very much worried about Cole Kmet. Like he's my tight end 29. Like I don't even want to draft Cole Kmet when we're getting to that range of draft. So like I'm a little bit lower. With Isaiah Likely, I think you're betting on the upside of a young, fun tight end. If he was without Mark Andrews, you could talk yourself into like Isaiah Likely being very high on our list because he's been a good tight end in the NFL, right? But overall, he's capped. He needs the upside of an Andrews injury, which we don't want to see. But it's like to truly hit that upside. But like in this range of the draft, like if you're really like spinning the barrel hoping for a guy, I don't mind it. It's like it's fine. Let's talk about Dulcich for a quick second. Another wide receiver room similar to Pittsburgh.
Yes.
The Broncos wide receiver room is just wide open. Like there is nobody. So like you could talk yourself into a Greg Dulcich breakout quite easily. Now I don't know if it's going to happen. He's dealt with injuries. This is an injury, and similar to like Musgrave in Green Bay, there's been a ton of injuries with Dulcich throughout his career and even going back to college. So that's the big question mark for him. But like, dude, that wide receiver room is barren. Then my thing is, I think Dulcich is actually a good NFL tight end, so I don't mind throwing the dart here, but it's real tough because you have another rookie quarterback, Bo Nix. Like I don't know, man. Like it's just you're throwing the dart. Hopefully he's the guy that breaks out. I think of these guys in this range, like it's a fairly easy way for him to break out. I just don't know if it's going to happen because of all the things that will lead up to this with him. And then we get down to Ben Sinnott, Juggernaut, your guy Ben Sinnott. It's Zach Ertz, right? So it's just as another rookie quarterback. It's going to be tough. I think with Ben Sinnott, he's going to come on. It's probably going to be second half of the year type thing, but he will slowly eat in production and be. So like if you want to do the back half of the year thing similar to TJ Hawkinson, I think he's a guy like you could target. And he's our tight end 24. We're getting really down here.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about Chig Okonkwo? Because go ahead.
No, but just with Sinnott real quick. I mean, we want to take the shot on Hawkinson, but he's going in like the 9th, 10th round. Sinnott is free at the end of drafts. So if you want to just take that back end of the year shot, just take Sinnott at the end and don't even let somebody else worry about stashing Hawkinson. You stash Sinnott and maybe he comes on even earlier. Zach Ertz gets injured or just, dies. Like don't die. We don't want anyone to die, but he's an old player is my point. So, so look, Ben Sinnott, I think is probably the better shot at cost than TJ Hawkinson.
Yeah. The whole thing is we just don't know if he's good. Like that's my whole, like there's a lot of projection built on him. Like that's the whole thing. Like if you're okay going the variance route of hoping it hits with Sinnott, then go for Sinnott. I think we know with Hawkinson when he comes back, the player you're going to get. That's my whole case for it. Like why I'm betting on him. But yeah, if I want to play the rookie year, like late round thing with Sinnott, like I think it's fine. You could talk yourself into it because Jane Daniels is better than any quarterback they've had there in the past. Washington, I don't even remember the last time that quarterback's good. So, all right. So let's Cade Otton. The dude just run routes. Like he's our tight end 26. If I can read this, yeah. Cade Otton is tight end 26. He just runs center routes. He just can't earn targets. So he's gonna be on the field. That's that case. It's great. It's kind of is what it is. For me, if I'm now this is getting really late. These are tight end 27. This leads us to Colby Parkinson. He's a starting tight end for the really good quarterback. I want to make that bet. Like, he's Stafford's tight end 1 this year. I'm fine. I have him as my tight end 22. I am significantly higher on the consensus. I think, for me personally, you can talk yourself into the situation playing that end zone role. So I don't mind Parkinson personally, but yeah, we're still this late round tight end. Like, it's not like we're expecting massive things from him. Yeah. I just think of guys running roles, connect to Stafford. Like, it's that simple of a bet, and that's what we're making. When we get to our tight end 28, it's Noah Fant. Target competition is what it is. If one of those guys goes down, he could be the third option in the Seahawks passing attack, which should be really good. Don't mind Noah Fant. You know what you're getting. I think it's interesting we get 2 rookie tight ends at tight end 29, tight end 30, and that's Jatavian Sanders and Theo Johnson. Oh, yeah, it's going to be rough for those guys, but they should be running routes. It's interesting that Carolina did sign Jordan Matthews to kind of play that hybrid tight end role, so we'll see how much Jatavian Sanders is playing, but his profile is good. I do worry about the upside. He's going to be more of a Zach Ertz in his career. Like, he's not going to give you that athletic freak upside. I think if you want to chase the athletic freak show, it's Theo Johnson, who's one of the best freaky athletes we've all seen at tight end 30. It's going to be rough for the Giants offense, but like similar to these other, like the Broncos, similar to the Steelers, they do not have a lot of receiving weapons. Like, it's really easy to talk yourself into these guys if they need to prove it. So I think if you want to take a shot on him, go for it. Michael Mayer, you're like, it's just, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say with Theo, there is nobody there. I think the demise of Daniel Jones is overblown. Is he going to be a starter next year? Probably not. But I think he'll be the starter this year. It's if they go to Drew Lock, they got bigger problems than Daniel Jones and whatever. But the nice thing about Daniel Jones is he's kind of throws the ball decently a couple yards out from the line of scrimmage. So while that could be a problem for Malik Neighbors going downfield, I don't think it's a problem for Theo Johnson. So I'm okay with him. And like you said, I am good with. I'm okay with Parkinson. I don't love it. Last thing I'll say is, because I'm sure my internet sucks at the moment, Zach Ertz, take the shot. We talked about Ben Sinnott coming on second half of the year. First half of the year, I think it's going to be all Zach Ertz. They don't have anybody outside of McLaurin there in Washington.
Yeah, it's rough. That we're talking about worst wide receiver groups, like they're up there. The difference is I just think he's a better player than Pickens, but like, man, similar. I don't like either one of those wide receiver groups, to tell you the truth. We get to tight end 32, Tucker. If you want to do Tucker Kraft, Green Bay Packers, go Tucker Kraft, Green Bay Packers. If you prefer him at cost to Luke Musgrave, you could do that. I think we'll cut this off at 36 to be kind to our subscribers, because we don't need to go to 47 to Josh Wiley. 33 and our tight end is Gerald Everett. He's going to be splitting work in that offense with Cole Kmet. I don't know how it's going to shake out, to tell you the truth. So if you want to throw a dart on the Caleb Williams potential tight end 1, because Gerald Everett's been a viable back end tight end 1 throughout his career, you could potentially do that. The upside just really isn't there. So it's real difficult. We get to tight end 35, Jonnu Smith, a guy of this range. They need a third option in the offense, and Odell's on pup. So in the Miami Dolphins offense, Jonnu Smith, I think he fits well with what they want to do, but the ceiling is a very difficult argument to make because it's so concentrated around Tyreek and Waddle. It's going to be very difficult, but we're talking about a guy being potentially top 15, top 20 tight end. I think Jonnu Smith can get you there. So if you're desperate and you want to pick up somebody to be a streamer, I think there will be some streaming weeks for Jonnu Smith. It's just the upside. Like, what's the upside, right? Like, we did this last year with the Smith offense. He had some spike weeks. It's just like, all right, fun. I guess not.
There will be spike weeks with Smith, but the thing is they're just experimenting with Mostert and Achane on the field at the same time, and Achane just splitting out wide or running in the slot. So I just think Jonnu is there to block and kind of just be a check down option, and that's not something I want.
Yeah, it's like, and also like Malik Washington as your third wide receiver is not great. We'll say that he's a day 3 pick. Yeah. Like, it's not a great profile. I think he's fine. Like, if you want to shoot the upside dynasty, but like, they need a third option, and like that, you're still betting on an unproven rookie. So like, it's why I think more than likely than not, John Smith is going to be the third option in that offense. We'll see how well that works out for him. I don't know, but like, he's a yak monster. Maybe he can give you a little bit of that. And our tight end 36 to close it out, Hayden Hurst. There we go, baby. You know what it is. Yeah, he's going to be splitting work in LA. He's running behind Disley, I think it is, which, my boy Disley's down below. I'm just disappointed to see it. No, it's the situation. You know those guys. Like, we've done this with Hayden Hurst. The upside's really just not there. So that's why I personally would bet on Disley. I think he's the one that's been running the routes of preseason. But yeah, it's whatever, man. Like we're deep in the throws of tight end at this point. If you're scrambling to find these tight ends, you have punted the position too far. So do not let it go this far, folks. Because if you do this far, you are cooked. Let me tell you what.
I just have to talk a little for a second because you talked about your love for Disley. I got to talk about Kylan Granson. Just the injuries are piling up over there in the tight end room. That was far too crowded. But now we have Jelani Woods out for the season. We have Mo Alley Cox, who I'm not sure if he's starting on the pup, but he's got some sort of issue that he's dealing with as well. So, Granson is the week 1 starter. He's got the opportunity to hold on to that job. Anthony Richardson has been struggling with, accuracy in the preseason. I don't think that's going to be a huge issue for him, but one thing that's going to help him is kind of, play it closer to the line of scrimmage in the first week or two, build his confidence up. And that plays perfectly into the hands of Kylan Granson, especially with Josh Downs probably still hobbled in the beginning of the season. So I love Granson out of the gate. I think he's really going to help kind of make that offense an all-around offense. And, when everybody gets healthy down the stretch, maybe not, but he can help you out in the first couple of weeks.
Yeah, if you want to throw the bet on this Richardson tight end one, I'm totally fine doing that. He has a really good RAS score. So if you want to play that game of RAS score tight end connected to a passer, you could totally do that. As you can see my rankings, yeah, I'm really high on Will Disley. I'm tight end 21. I'm gonna stop talking about with Will Disley. Like that's just absurdly high. I'm not like the only one who ranked him. But anyways, that'll be our top 36 tight ends for this week. If you guys are looking for deeper dive tight ends, I don't know what you're doing. Like I don't think you need to go past this late looking for
don't do it.
Yeah. I think we're probably gonna wrap it up because we've done enough talking about tight ends. Talked about it for an hour almost. Tomorrow we're gonna talk about quarterbacks, so we're gonna jump into our top 36 tight end quarterbacks. I mean, realistically, with quarterbacks, it's a similar bet. It just is a little bit deeper overall. I'll say that. So so join us tomorrow, 12 o'clock Eastern time, 9 o'clock Pacific time. So talk about that. But then Saturday we have our AMA, so we'll stay with us to do the Reddit thing. So make sure y'all locked in, ask us questions, jump aboard with us as we have fun with you guys on that day. It's gonna be all day experience. So we look forward to y'all joining us. But yeah, for myself, for Jeremy, for Essie, for Aaron, the FFU, give them the double FU. You know what I'm saying? Take it out, folks. We will see you tomorrow.